and then probably something like Samola, Gulf Estates. It was started in the 90s, and there was a massive flood, and they ended up with all the greens which they had built but they hadn't grassed. And they ended up down the Salt River into the middle of the estuary, which ended up on the oyster racks as well. So that in the 90s was a massive impact.
Sure.
Yeah.
Zoning of estuaries was introduced in the Protected Areas Act, and commercial fishing was prohibited. Further conservation acts protected marine and freshwater biodiversity, and were implemented in Knysna's Estuary Protection Plan. Sandparks is the main regulator for the estuary below the waterline.
It's a known fact that we have a very progressive sort of environmental system and governance or laws. But again, it's one of those things. It's great to have laws and it's great to have it done on paper, but how well it's enforced and followed up on is a different.
We do water monitoring, and we look at specifically all the industries around, and are there any factors that would be negatively affecting the quality of the water. We try to keep our alien species as far as possible, that whether it be within the estuary or on the outskirts of the estuary. So that's the type of monitoring that we do on a daily basis to ensure that we maintain that.
Despite the R29.6 million investment in Knysna's sewage treatment plants and stormwater drainage facilities in 2012, E. coli concentrations still exceed recommended levels. In January 2014, 3 of 14 sites failed to achieve a safe recreational use standard of 400 E. coli per 100 millilitres, while in February 5 sites failed. Urea concentrations within the Knysna estuary's tributaries are high and increase further during storm surges. These surges may have a direct correlation with the dinoflagellates blooms which occur in the estuary during the latter part of the wet summer season.
We're faced with at present, which is really unique, is the red tide that we have at the moment. And this specific red tide is much larger, longer, wider and deeper. And it has the scientists in a bit of a puzzle at the moment, so everybody's trying to figure out what's going on here, why is this happening.
While urea-based fertilizers are mainly used on cattle farms, they are also used on golf courses and residential properties. Increases were noted as being largely a result of animal waste and residential homes using pit toilets. The 2011 census states only 2/3 of flush toilets in the municipality are actually connected to sewage. The influx of poor migrants to Knysna's informal settlements is a key contributor.
The size of the pipes in those areas was slightly smaller because they didn't think that the area would grow as fast as it did. So it is a major problem, yes.
Okay, because we asked them whether or not that they ever had overflows.
Knysna's daily tidal regime, though, creates a flushing effect, which ensures the estuary's overall health is maintained.
You will get a flush of pollution,
Yeah.
but because of this tide of flushing it out, it literally flushes it out twice a day, right the way up and back.
Invasive alien species utilize up to 3 times more water than indigenous species. This limits the water available to the municipality for abstraction.
One of the biggest problems is alien infestation. Alien vegetation infestation. It's a massive problem. It's so big that the whole country spends in excess of 3 billion rand trying to get rid of alien vegetation. How does that affect the municipality? Our water comes from the upper catchment. Now these plants, they sap water. They just drink it like nobody's business. By the time we get to the obstruction point, the amount of water that we are allowed to take is reduced because the Department of Water Affairs, which is a national department, decides how much water we get, not us.
The estuary's water levels, though, are protected by the reserve water requirements as specified in the National Water Reserve Management Strategy. But considering future population growth and climate change, these pressures on water availability from invasive alien species and abstraction for Knysna's population will need further consideration. The seagrass meadows of the estuary are shallow water centres of similar biodiversity to coral reef systems and the basis of the estuarine food chains. They are spawning grounds and provide safety to juvenile fish, including rare endemic species of the estuary, as well as saltwater species. Over the last 54 years, encroachment has reduced these areas by 60%. Eelgrass within these meadows is easily damaged by bait collection and associated trampling. Fishing and baiting is therefore controlled by permits, zoning, and quantity limits. The increasing township populations, many of whom are living below the poverty line, has led to an increase in subsistence fishing, and illegal bait harvesting is on the rise as a result of this. Two-thirds of collectors are subsistence fishermen. They often take more than the legal limit and collect bait without a required permit. Bait collection with the use of a garden fork is the most damaging and is evident even a year later. Rangers say offenders are often aggressive and ignore the law enforcement measures, having no funds. But their difficult financial situation means impoverished fishermen are often forced to breach the legal limits to survive.
I got no shelter to go, no place to go, so I prefer to be staying here.
So you sleep here as well?
I'm sleeping here, my stuff, catching fish, sell it, making some bait, sell the bait to the guys who come fishing. Actually now we're going over the limit.
Yeah.
And I hate it because of these guys.
Essentially, the key message here is that the recreational activities in and around the Knysna estuary do not impact directly on the long-term environmental sustainability of the estuary's health. Rather, it appears that they impact indirectly. The tourism attractions and the natural beauty of the estuary contribute significantly to Knysna's economy, which has resulted in population growth due to migration and the rapid growth of the informal settlements. This growth is creating the major pressures on the estuary as noted in the study, which are sewage effluent overflow and urea loading, as well as illegal bait harvesting. Despite the municipality having invested 68 million rand in sewage treatment and stormwater system upgrades, high eco levels are still being recorded in the monthly water samples. These, though, are not of huge concern due to the flushing effect created in the estuary by its tidal regime. However, Knysna is lacking a long-term management plan that takes into consideration its rapid development and climate change. The disruption of the saltwater fish species breeding grounds in the eelgrass beds through the illegal bait harvesting, though, is a concern, and one which could do with further immediate action. Overall, though, the management of the estuary is sound, as its environmental health.